We started last week on Tachanun. And okay, so today was the first day we said Tachanun in more than 3 weeks. We have not said Tachanun since Yom Kippur. I don't think we didn't talk about this exactly. Why have we not said Tachanun since Yom Kippur? So we didn't say whatever. Okay, over Sukkot. Why do we say Tachanun after Sukkot? Why don't we say Tachanun all of Nisan? It's a little bit strange, right? Anybody want to tell me why? And because of that, of course, that's why Tachanun is like a neglected prayer. Everybody loves when they skip. Whenever you skip things a lot, or occasionally, people let's skip them more often. Like, why have to have more? If you say everybody knows, you have to say Shema every day. Nobody's going to say why don't we skip Shema? But I don't say Tachanun already 50 times a year, the whole month. So why do I have to say it now? People like it. Oh, there's a wedding in shul, beautiful. You don't have to say Tachanun. Bris this morning, the Moels in shul, right? When I davened in Bet Jacob, Zev can tell you as the rabbi in the shul in Toronto, we have one of the popular Moelim in Toronto, and he came to Minyan every morning, and 98% of the mornings he had a bris. You can argue if the bris in the shul, so they never said Tachanun. Aaron, you have a bris, beautiful, and they're very upset when he didn't have a bris because they'd have to say Tachanun. Because but it's so beautiful Tachanun, as we'll see. But honestly, so why don't we say it when there's a bris and when there's a Sheva Brachas and Nisan? Anybody want to tell me why we don't say it? We don't skip other things of prayer because it's a semi-holiday.
Maybe because it's very sad. It's very
Right. So that's the standard. It's very sad. And therefore what?
And a
Why
bris
do we
is a
ever say
very
it?
happy occasion.
Right. So correct. Tachanun has a sadder reflection. So I think it's what I mentioned last week, that really Tachanun is an add-on. It's not really part of our davening. It was added on, we'll discuss a little today, probably in the 8th century parts of it. It's not part of, the Tachanun that we say, it was like we said last week that the Shmon Esrei was established by the rabbis. This is what you got to say, these 18 prayers. But it took away our personal freedom a little bit. When rabbis write, prayer is supposed to be from the heart. We've talked, it's supposed to be a spontaneous, you say what you want to say, but that didn't work. When the Jews went into exile, it would be too crazy. Jews wouldn't know what to say, would be too disunited. So the rabbis established the Anshe Knesset Gdola as fixed text for prayer. They said, say it silently so you can add in personal prayers, but it's still fixed. And that took away a little bit from our ability to cry out to God from our heart. And that's what Tachanun is. Tachanun had now again, we also have a fixed text, but it's supposed to have zero fixed text. Tachanun is after you saying what the rabbis tell you have to say, just say it in your own language, say what you want to say, and don't worry about anything. And it was because it was established, it was in a time of persecution and things, so it had a very negative, we're crying out to God, things are very sad. So we don't want to say it on days that are a little bit joyous, not just on Yom Tov, Nisan, the whole month. The month after Sukkot, the week after Sukkot is still Tishrei. So I think that is the standard explanation. I know I'm not thrilled with that explanation. It doesn't, but I don't know. But the whole month of Nisan, I hear that. So it's got a sad idea. So we don't want to say any day that's a little bit of happiness and joy. Okay, I think it's connected. I may have mentioned this last week that we've discussed on numerous occasions that for Soloveitchik, we make a big deal about this. We don't have any right to pray. Who are a chutzpah? I've mentioned many times, I love the Ramban on prayer. The Ramban who says that prayer is an act of kindness. There is no mitzvah to pray. It's not one of the 613 mitzvot. The Rambam says prayer is a daily obligation. One of the 613 mitzvot to worship God. We say it in the Shema, to worship God with your heart. What's worship God with your heart? That's prayer. So that the Talmud says, so it sounds like a biblical mitzvah. That's what the Rambam says. So most people, then that's a biblical mitzvah. That's the rabbi's just a smachta. That's not really what the verse means. But the Rambam says there's a daily obligation to pray. The Rambam says no obligation to pray. You don't have to pray if you don't want to. God allows us to pray. You have someone who's sick. Oh, do you want him to get better? No, I don't care. I don't want to pray him to get better. What do you mean? Are you crazy? We pray because we pray for health and wealth and wisdom and peace and justice. You don't want to pray for that? So we're not going to make you pray for that. You have a screw loose in your head. What the Ramban says is God is really nice. He allows you to come 3 times. I heard you yesterday. I heard you 4 hours ago. Yeah, they daven mincha and marv together in shul. 10 minutes ago, I heard you davening mincha. Why don't you say the same thing again? I heard you already. Enough, enough. No, the Ramban said prayer is a tremendous act of kindness. So I think it relates to that a little bit, perhaps. So chutzpah to say tachanun. Okay, the rabbis established anshe the shmona say tachanun. You want to say more and more and more and more. How much more can you? They say it's you need permission to pray. So that we're not going to give you on a day that has any joy. I don't know that this reason I made up on my own. I don't know if it's true, but to me it sounds like I mean it's connected to what we said that these are happier days. On happier days we don't say Tachanun. Today we started Cheshvan Mar Cheshvan. By the way, I have to read Ari Zivotofsky article. I forget, right? Everybody thinks it's called Mar Cheshvan because there are no holidays. That's not really true. That's not the real reason. But I forget now the whole thing. I remember a number of years ago, Ari Zivotofsky writes every month in Jewish Action, breaking all the myths that people have. So, anyways, but we started Cheshvan.
It's based on a Babylonian word.
Oh,
Mar.
right. It's
Yeah,
based.
right.
There's a Babylonian word, Mar Cheshvan, right? So that's the name of the month. Yeah, it's not because of Mar, but like many things, it may not matter. Like it's true. In other words, things may be wrong, but that's how customs work. There may be an original reason for some custom. That reason goes away. We make up a totally new reason that had nothing to do with the original reason, but still that becomes the new explanation. Okay, so even though Mar Cheshvan might not really be because Mar, it's the only month without holidays. I really, believe me, I prefer Cheshvan over Tisha B'Av. I prefer the month of Cheshvan with no holidays than Tisha B'Av with quote unquote the holiday of Tisha B'Av. But anyways, so today we started to say Tachanun. So now, why do we say, and that's we're going to, I said I'd start today, going through the actual text. V'hu Rachum. We're going to start with the long Tachanun, as we say, the Monday and Thursday Tachanun. So the first question I'll ask before we get to who composed it, when, is why do we say special Tachanun, longer Tachanun on Mondays and Thursdays? What's special on Mondays and Thursdays?
Read the Torah.
Right. Okay. So why do we read the Torah on Mondays and Thursdays?
Market days.
I'm sorry?
Market days.
Market days. Good. Okay.
There
And
were
why are
more
they market
people
days?
there.
Right.
There were
So
more
right.
people
So
there.
there is an interesting question. What came first? The chicken or the egg here? The market came first or the Torah came first? But I'm assuming the market came first. Well, I don't know. In other words, the Torah said,
Moshe went up
I'm
and
sorry?
down Har Sinai. Moshe went up on Har Sinai on the
So we're
Monday,
going to
came
get
down
there.
on Thursday.
Yeah, good. Very okay, excellent. These are all great points. Let's put this all
Why
together.
isn't there also the idea that you're not supposed to go 3 days without
Excellent.
reading?
That's exactly what I'm going to start with. Beautiful. So the idea that we read the Torah Monday and Thursday, who invented that idea?
Ezra.
Ezra. No, oh shoot, I should look it up. Maybe it's Moshe. I can't. Okay, Moshe Rabbeinu. You heard of him, but he's Moshe Rabbeinu. So Moshe has two roles. We think of Moshe. Most people think of Moshe only in one role. I mean, one role as the one who gave us God's Torah. Moshe is okay. He's our redeemer, of course. We think of him like that too. But in terms of Moshe and Jewish law, Moshe gave us the Torah. Everything that's Moshe said is Torah law. So that's not 100% true. Moshe was also a rabbi. And Moshe established laws that God didn't tell him. So the Gemara says that Moshe established the law that we should read the Torah every week. Wow. And until the 12th century, whatever, in many places they read the Torah every 3 years. Simchat Torah. We know Simchat Torah didn't exist in Israel. Simchat Torah, I wrote about that. Right? Simchat Torah is a very weird holiday in Israel because it sort of contradicts the way we observe Shmini Atzeret and Simchat Torah. They don't merge at all. The Shmini Atzeret is very serious, and Yizkor and Geshem and the Kittel, and Simchat Torah is like a carnival. Simchat Torah was developed only post-Talmudic outside the diaspora, where we had this extra day of Shmini Atzeret. We come back to Israel, it's Nishtehi, Nishteher. It's very Shmini Atzeret's gotten lost and whatever, but it wasn't meant. It really doesn't work, and that's why I claim they have Hakapot Shniyot, right? Israel, the custom is because it's a sort of weird. Those would be, I mean, maybe Israelis don't like when I say this because they grew up that way, but I think all of us who grew up with 2 days Shmini Atzeret, Simchat Torah, and you go to Israel, it's a weird feeling. The mixture of the days, because they didn't have Simchas Torah in Israel. They read the Torah. First of all, there weren't so many people living there, but in Israel they finished Torah every 3 years. And I think I mentioned that Ya'ari in his book on Toldot Chag Simchat Torah wrote a 600-page book on everything about Simchat Torah. He quotes Benjamin of Tudela in the 12th century. Benjamin of Tudela in the 12th century, who was a world traveler and wrote about all his travels before Torah and motion trips. Right, he had Benjamin of Tudela. So he comes to Egypt and he says there are two shuls in Egypt on the same street, or I don't know, on the same street, near each other. And in one shul, they're celebrating Simchas Torah. They're following the Babylonian practice to read the Torah once a year. And in the other shul, they follow the Israeli practice. They finish the Torah every 3.5 years. Don't make a big deal. So it wasn't Simchas Torah. So the people from the Israeli shul, I guess they're having a big kiddush at the other shul. The people from the Israeli shul came over to the Babylonian Egyptian shul to join them in the celebration. Oh, they're doing that, but it's amazing. The 12th century, you had shuls in Egypt. What's Simchas Torah? Anyways,
Rabbi,
yeah.
I have a question that I didn't know about. I only know about because of October 7th. I was
Yeah, okay,
very,
let's leave October
I
7th
was,
for now. Obviously,
I
that's changed
was,
our whole conception
I was
of Simchas Torah.
very surprised that they call it Simchas Torah.
Yeah, it
And
is. In Israel, my understanding is Simchas Torah has basically replaced Shmini Atzeret. Shmini Atzeret doesn't really exist anymore in Israel. And it exists, obviously, that's what the holiday is called in Torah, but the day is observed as Simchat Torah, obviously, because that's where you have all the thing. So Shmini Atzeret has gotten lost in Israel. And what's really
Recording in
sort of so
progress.
strange about it, I mean, besides the horrific tragedy, but and my son-in-law told me, hold on, Sue's talking. Hold on, if you can. My son-in-law told me he was talking to his brother who lives in Israel, and he mentioned, how October 7th, Shmini Atzeret, and his brother said, well, what do you mean? It happened on Simchas Torah. See, for us, October 7th happened on Shmini Atzeret, but in Israel, October 7th happened on Simchat Torah. So it's
yeah,
all I can say is thank God thank God the hostages came back. I mean, at least that. But thank God they came back on Shmini Atzeret. We were talking, my son-in-law said it redeemed Shmini Atzeret. Because Shmini Atzeret is always going to be remembered as this terrible day, but now it is also the day they came back. Anyways, let's get back here to Tachanun I mentioned last week. So Moshe Rabbeinu establishes Torah reading on Shabbos. I think he may have also done Monday and Thursday. Ezra did the Aliyot, because it says in the Torah they went for 3 days without water. And then they started complaining, and it's very dangerous. So the Torah says you can't go more than 3 days without water. You can't go. Water is Torah. The physical and spiritual worlds always connect to each other. So what's true in one is true in the other. So if you can't go 3 days without physical food, water, can't go without Torah. So that's the established Torah reading has to be every 3 days. So it doesn't have to be Monday, Thursday. It could be Tuesday, Friday. Would also work. Or Sunday, Wednesday. Would Sunday, Wednesday work? I guess that would also work, right? So why Mondays and Thursdays? So that's what Susan mentioned. So the Torah quotes a tradition, not mentioned anywhere in the Torah, of course, that when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Har Sinai, he went the second time after the breaking of the first tablets. So forgiveness, right? We're begging God to forgive. You'll see there's a lot of this in Tachanun asking God to forgive us. So after the sin of the golden calf, Moshe went up on a Thursday, and he came down with the Torah on a Monday. So of course, I said, okay, let's calculate this, and of course the calculation doesn't work. What I mean, Moshe Rabbeinu, let's say he goes out. When was the Torah given? What day of the week? Again, we don't know. But how do the rabbis say? The rabbis have a debate whether the Torah was given on the 6th or the 7th of Sivan. Torah doesn't make a big deal when the Torah is given. The Torah doesn't really care about that. Torah cares the Torah is 365 days a year. That's a whole other shiur. So the Torah does not make a big deal, doesn't even mention the date we got. There's no holiday. Shavuot has nothing to do with getting the Torah. That's only after the destruction of the temple, because we lost all meaning. Shavuos is only connected to the temple, agriculture. So after the destruction of the temple, we converted Shavuos into the time of the Torah. It's probably that's how Mordechai Pori understand that. That seems to be the simple explanation. Although it sounds a little radical to people, there's no mention in the Torah to celebrate the day we got the Torah, because every day we get the Torah. B'chol yom yu beinecha kachadashim. Every day should be like new. So the Torah doesn't tell us when, what. It tells us we know in the third month, but we don't really know when. Okay, but the Talmud says, and there's a debate on the date, but everybody agrees it's given on Shabbat. However they derive it, fine, it's given on Shabbat. Okay, so if it's given on Shabbat, what day was Shiva Asar B'Tammuz? 40 days later, they broke the Luchot. And remember in Judaism, right, a Brit Milah is on the 8th day. If you were to ask a non-Jew when the Brit Milah is, it'll tell you it's on the 7th day. Right, the baby's born on a Tuesday, and the bris is on a Tuesday. The baby is 7 days old. He's not 8 days old, right? So, we don't count day one. We count right. But in Judaism, day one and day eight, with the bris on the 8th day, he's not 8 days old. He's 7 days old. So 40 days after the golden calf, after Mainzina is the golden calf. What day of the week is that?
Thursday.
No, Wednesday.
Well, if you had
day one, okay, just multiplied by 7. So, so day 42
would be Saturday.
Day 43 is Saturday. Because remember, like a bris, day 43 is Saturday. Shabbos is day 1. I mean, it's not a big deal, but it's just to me, day 43 is a Saturday, which means day 40 is a Wednesday, which is fine. Because the Torah, he broke the Talmud, because the Torah says, "Vayihimi macharat." On the next day, he went up to Mount Sinai to plead for God. So beautiful, it works. He went up on a Thursday. When did he come down? How many days later did he come down with the Torah? 80 days later. 40 days to Rosh Chodesh, 4 days. If you do the calculation, from a Thursday, 80 days later is not Monday. So I don't know where this comes from. I don't know. It's not such, like, who cares? It's not such a big deal. But if you're, I think about everything like this. The Torah wasn't scientific. I don't mean science. The Torah didn't, everything Torah rounds off 40. We know, right? Moshe did not, or how, I don't know which isn't true, but one of the two statements isn't true. Moshe lived to be 120, or it's not exactly true, or the Jews were in the desert for 40 years. Both those statements cannot be true. Or what? Well, with the third statement that Moshe was 80 when he went to Paro. It says all those three things. It says in the Torah. It says in the Torah Moshe was 80 when he went to Paro. It says we were 40 years in the desert, and he said he was 120 years when he died. So how long did the 10 plagues take? How long does this leave for the 10 plagues? No, zero time. We know it's not. The rabbis already said the 10 plagues took over a year. Took a year. So there's something has to give here. Nothing has to give. The rabbis, the Torah, it doesn't care about these things. The 40 numbers are symbols. So the Torah, how many Jews went to Egypt? We said it before. Sargon told me 70, and everybody knows when you count, it's only 69. So every commentary, well, it was 69. How do you get to 70? Maybe Yaakov, maybe Yocheved was born, and pregnant. No, the answer is who cares? The Torah rounds off numbers. What you think, on the best example, look in Bamidbar, where we count the Jewish people. I've mentioned this before, but it's so beautiful, so beautiful. Every tribe, look it up, 200, 400, 600, 700, the statistical probability of having 11 of 12 tribes, as we'll get there, 11 of 12 tribes ending in 100 is like, I don't know how to pronounce that number. It's beyond trillions, it's beyond gemillion, whatever those next things are. Impossible. There's only one tribe that doesn't have 100, and it's the exact same thing in Pinchas. When they recount every tribe, 11 out of 12 get 100.
Lazy.
So that 22 out of 24 gets 100 is like, it's not possible. It's impossible statistically. There are only 2 tribes that don't get 100. In Bamidbar, it's Gad, I think, and I know which, and in Pinchas, it's Reuven. One's 30, one's 50. That's why there's 603,550 Jews in the first census and 601,730 Jews in the next census. They too rounded to tens. It's so obvious. Reuven and Gad. The count was to go to Israel. Reuben and Gad don't want to go to Israel. They want to stay on the other side of the Jordan. So the Torah has their numbers, not full 100. It's so beautiful. The Torah's just talking to us by numbers. So the Torah always does that. Numbers reflect ideas, right? My Dvar Torah, that is, I have to finish up after the Shir. So I'm going to talk about how Terach was 70 when he had Abraham. You think that's a coincidence? You think he really was 70? I don't know if he was 70. The Torah says he was 70 because 70, Terach is the real founder of the Jewish people. He's the first one who goes on Aliyah. And Abraham just continues his mission, right? And Noach had 70 kids. But you think that's a coincidence? And Nachor had 12 kids like Yaakov. These are not, who cares? It doesn't have to be accurate. I know that sounds weird for us, but the Torah uses numbers to tell ideas. The best one, and then we'll go back into Tachanun, is, I love it, is how old was Lemach? That's Noach's father. How old was Lemach when he died? Let's see who pays attention. Okay, sorry. It's so beautiful. I love this stuff. How old was Lemach? 777. It's a weird number. Now, it's weird. He's the youngest person to die except for Hanoch, who died at 365. Now, you're going to die at 365, right, okay. Maybe he died at 365, but clearly the Torah, we don't care he died at 365 because he was 365 years old. We care because there are 365 days in the year, just like there are 365 negative mitzvot. And we know the rabbis didn't make a big deal. Nobody can figure out the 613 mitzvot because the rabbis didn't care about 613 mitzvot. They cared about the number, the concept of a daily, every single day, 365 negative mitzvot. And your body has to be into Torah. So there are 248 positive because that's the bone body. It does. We can't match it. Who cares? It's approximate. It doesn't matter. So he lived to be 365, and Lemach lives to be 777. Why is that a significant number? So it's 37. 7 is always the biblical number of nature, God representing God's mastery of nature. So Lemach probably believed in God, which is probably why Noah was, a righteous person. He raised him properly. But there's something else that I find beautiful. I never saw this anywhere. You can think I'm crazy. So Cain, there are 2 Lemachs in the Torah, right? The genealogy table. There's Cain's genealogy table that was all wiped out. And then there's the Adam, genealogy table. And a lot of the names are the same. So Cain's great-great-great-grandson, generation 7, is Lemach, the one who killed 2 people. Ada and Sila tells his wife, I killed those 2 people. So what does he say to his wife? I killed these people, but it's okay. Because Cain, my great-great-grandfather, he killed somebody. And what did God say? God said, nobody will harm you for 7 generations.
7 generations.
So
right.
Lemach said he killed on purpose. He gets 7 generations. Me, no one's going to harm me for 77 generations.
7.
That's what he said. Lemach, the second Lemach is like the tikkun. He's fixing up the mistake. So he takes these 2, 3 sevens all together, 777. I think that's significant. Maybe you think I'm crazy. But the 7 of Cain, the 77 of Lemach, this new Lemach, the father of Noah, 777. So numbers are always rounded off in the Bible. So it doesn't bother me that 80 days doesn't really work to Monday, Thursday. Maybe there's an extra day. Who cares? But I looked it up in the Torah. It's a Torah who quotes this in the 14th century. I don't know his source. That there must be an earlier source. I didn't check that the idea that he went up on Monday, came down on a Thursday. Could be, we obviously don't know. The Torah doesn't tell us. It doesn't matter. But that became the idea, Monday, Thursday. Now we know in Mishnah Tanit, when they observed fast days for raining, they would always do the fast days on Mondays and Thursdays. And I'm sure it is definitely connected. Monday and Thursdays were market days, which is perhaps why they established Torah reading on Monday. People were coming into the market. When people were coming in, the Jews were coming in. They didn't have a minyan in their towns, these farmers. So they only went to shul on Mondays and Thursdays. We even know the first Mishnah in Megillah, that's the famous Mishnah, that the Megillah can be read on the 11th, 12th, 13th, earlier. The farmers would supply food. So who's going to read the Megillah on their farm? They're Hicks. They don't know how to read the Megillah. It's not like today everybody gets a Jewish education, right? They would read the Megillah. We're not going to make them schlep in. It's a big schlep to come in. So it's okay. We'll read the Megillah two days early. Whenever the Monday or Thursday before Purim is, that's when we're going to read the Megillah. So it's very that's very so interesting. So Monday, Thursday were the market days. It's the days people are coming into town. We can read the Torah. We can have things, and it became Yemei Ratzon. So it would make sense that if you're going to make davening longer, the days you're going to do it as Monday, Thursday. Yeah, maybe. Then the rabbis wanted to connect it to Mount Sinai. Okay, Beseda, they want to connect it to Mount Sinai. But like every custom in Judaism, there's always a practical reason, and there's always sort of a philosophical reason. And they complement each other. They don't have to be the exact same. So that's it. There's a very practical reason why Monday, Thursday would be done for extra davening and Kriyas Torah and Vurakum. And whenever the idea that somehow Monday and Thursday are Yemei Ratzon. I don't know. Does anybody have the minhag to fast? Like Shovavim Tat, does anybody do that here? Nobody does that. My father tells me my grandfather used to do that, but we don't go for fasting anymore. Jews used to fast all the time. Whenever they sinned to do tshuva, they would fast. There was a custom, relatively widespread, to fast Mondays and Thursdays on the Parshiot. Some people, I think, fast every Monday, Thursday. They didn't have a lot of food, so it wasn't so hard to fast. It's not like us. People weren't overweight 300 years ago, like in the shtetl. We are.
Rabbi Kelman,
Yeah.
I heard a shiur 2 weeks ago that there was a time in the Middle Ages in the Ashkenaz European countries that there was a debate, and they even fasted 2 days on Yom Kippur.
So that was a debate. You don't have to go to the Middle Ages. You go to Shanghai in 1943.
Right. They brought that up too.
So that's not accepted halachic view. We're not crazy. The halacha is not mean. I was just teaching. As you know, I teach a class before this class, which reminds me that in 2 weeks after we change the clock, this class is moving. I'm sorry, but I have no choice. I teach in chat. I don't get my own schedule. So this class is moving 10 minutes early, not such a big deal. We're at 9:15 because the chat schedule changes. So once we change the clock, this class will be at 9:25 as opposed to 9:35. Let's say there. But so I was just teaching right now, like half an hour ago. So we were talking women's issues in halakha, contemporary halakha course. So Ezra can tell you about it. So I was learning about that women are not obligated to the mitzvah approver, which comes as a shock to people. What do you mean women are not obligated to approver? So first of all, that's a machloket. That's a debate. Rav Yochanan Berger says women are obligated like men. They're not obligated. Of course they're obligated. God blessed Adam and Eve. He said pruvu, like it wasn't not just Adam. So but the halakha has accepted the view that women are not obligated. So the Meshech Chachma, who died in 1926, I believe, the Meshech Chachma explains why. Well, it makes no sense. It's not a mitzvah to say as among grama. Like, why is women exempt? So he says that the Torah is beautiful and peaceful and kind, and to make a woman suffer the pain of childbirth and the risk to life. I mean, people used to die. Not, thank God, today that's very rare. But in the Middle Ages, people died 100 years ago. Many women died in childbirth. So the Torah is not going to obligate you. You want to have a kid, Baruch Hashem, go ahead, have a kid. But you don't have that kid. The Gemara uses that argument when they're discussing what hadas is. Or we can't use, it's too prickly. Torah wouldn't make you, so to make somebody fast for 2 days. So we know today, Yom Kippur is 1 day, Sukkot is 2 days. That makes no sense, logically. If you don't know the date for Sukkot, you for sure don't know the date of Yom Kippur. But what happened 2,000 years ago when they didn't know the date for Yom Kippur? So we can argue, okay, we keep the custom, because, obviously today we know the dates, but it originates, we didn't know when Yontif was. It took too far. People living outside of Israel didn't know, so they kept an extra day. So fine. So what did they do on Yom Kippur 2,000 years ago? Do you think they fasted for 2 days? No way. They did not fast 2 days. The Gemara already said, I don't know, I wasn't there, but no way. The Gemara says, Mimei Ezra, Lo Ra'inu Elam Ubar, right? If you look at the story, Rabbi Lichtag was talking about this week. Ezra, there's 2 days of Rosh Hashanah in the book of Ezra. But from then, Rosh Hashanah was always one day. So they assumed that Elul had 29 days and Rosh Hashanah was day one. So for Yom Kippur, you'll listen to that assumption. For Sukkot, it's no big deal, keep an extra day. What does it bother you? But it bothers me to keep a day. So when the Jews from the Mir Yeshiva escaped and they were in Shanghai, so they sent the Shaila back to Israel. So all the Rabbanim Paskin, they should do like when in China do like the Chinese, when in Australia, right? The question, where's the international date line in halakha? And the Chazon Ish disagreed. I remember all the details. Chazon Ish disagreed, and he said, no, you observe Shabbos on Friday or whatever on Sunday. I don't know which one it is now. So they had to keep an extra day. So apparently there were. I think very few people, even in the Mir Yeshiva, who fasted 2 days, or it's not, you hear that today. Some people, they go to Japan, these places, so they won't do malacha on, I forget now, I guess if it's on, they won't do malacha on Friday or on Sunday. They won't do biblical work as maybe the international date line, right? The Talmud was not aware of the international date line, or they don't talk about it. Why? So I don't want to get into trouble here, but why did the Talmud not talk about the international date? Do you think it's pretty important? No.
There wasn't one.
Well, why wasn't there one?
Because they thought the world was flat.
Yeah, because there's no
They didn't know
evidence
it was
that the
round.
rabbis knew the world, they were time zones. And maybe some did. I mean, it was known in the scientific world, so I'm sure some rabbis did. But there's no, the Talmud doesn't talk about time zones. Talmud's unaware of time zones, or they never talk about it, so we don't know. So some say you can make up the international date line wherever you want. There are many halakhic authorities. Wherever the non-Jews decide, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, that's fine. There's no halakha about it. Where it's a convention, you make it wherever you want. And some say no, it's 90 degrees east of Jerusalem. Some say 180 degrees. So that there are parts of Australia and are the Japan, China. These parts are in the middle where it's a little bit of a debate. But I think the Jews in Australia all keep Shabbos on Saturday. I mean, it'd be crazy to do otherwise. Anyways, okay, let's get to Tachanun.
I could just say one word. I discovered a few weeks ago an interesting book. It's both very educational and very funny. It's called John Lennon and the Jews.
I'm sorry, I didn't get
I
that.
discovered a book written by a rabbi called John Lennon and the Jews.
God, what in the Jews?
John Lennon, as the Beatle, John Lennon.
John Lennon.
Oh,
John
John
Lennon.
Lennon. I'm sorry, John Lennon and Jews. Yeah, some book. Okay, Nunu. I'm not into rock and roll. What can I tell you? I remember when John Lennon was assassinated.
A lot of these issues in a very funny way.
I think I have the book actually. So I think somebody gave me the book. I haven't read it. What can I say? I got lots of books I haven't read. John Lennon and the Jews. Nunu. Okay. What can I tell you? Okay. All right. Let's at least start on the text of Tachanun a little bit. So, okay, I'm going to pull it up here. For next week, please, have your Siddur handy. It'll be will help. But now we're going to start. Where are we going here? Okay. This is very interesting. This is Sepharia. So this is very unusual for Sepharia. They have this very interesting comment. This group of somber plains, known as the Long Rachum, is recited in the morning. Everybody can see, right? You can see my screen, right? Is recited in the morning service on Mondays and Thursdays, except on days when Tachanun is omitted. It's very interesting that they don't even call this Tachanun. Like the Rachum is like not Tachanun. Okay, that doesn't really matter. Maybe it's semantic. Maybe Tachanun just by Yomer David, but okay. Anyways, the origin of these 7 prayers, they divide Tachanun. We can talk about that. Not all Siddurim do that, but they divide into 7 different themes. Is shrouded in legend. It has been suggested that they were composed during the terrible persecution home of the Goths in the 7th century Spain. These were before. It's very interesting. The Goths were Christians, I think. Were basically Christians, and they were very, very, very anti-Semitic. They're not so well known. Jews don't know about this so much. And the first, quote unquote, the Marranos, Jews who, converted outwardly but not inwardly, starts here. Not later in Spain. And they ruled Spain until 711 when the Muslim conquest happened. And the Jews were so excited when the Muslim conquest happened because the Muslims were so much nicer to Jews. I mean, we know that in history. So the Jews welcomed the Muslims, and the Muslims treated the Jews very well. That's quote unquote the beginning of the golden age of Spain. It wasn't like in America where you had total freedom, but it was quite good. So that's the ghosts are before the Muslim conquest of Spain. So that's what a lot of the Siddurim write, a lot of the commentators write. They think it was composed in this time. It means whoever along Rachum without emotion, lost, okay, noble. Despite all the repetition, there is a lot of repetition. We'll see mercy, help, protection. That's very sad. So we don't say it. That's what the standard reason. We don't want to say it in happy days. And because there is not merely an individual soul, the soul of the entire people that utters these lament and supplication. Sort of goes a little bit against what I was saying. This lament is your person. Well, that's the original Tachanun. Okay, yeah. Now here we go. This Moshe ascended Mount Sinai to receive the second tablets on the 5th day of the week. Right, that's what I said, because Shiva Sarah Tammuz was on a Wednesday, the 40 days from Shabbos works to Wednesday. Vayimach, the next day is on a Thursday. He returned on the second day of the week. I have no idea where that comes from, but who cares? I don't know. Bringing in the new tablets as a security to covenant means the original Yom Kippur was on a Monday. Right, that's what it means. The original Yom Kippur was on Monday. Monday, Thursday had been days, summons of Jewish people to assemble anew before God to reform their sincere return. So Mondays and Thursdays did become special day. We read the Torah, the people come in, Tachanun, fasting, etc. Okay, so let's begin. Let's start at least with the first couple of sentences, just something very interesting. I mean, how do we start? Okay, name me 3 other places we say this in the Siddur. It's not fair.
Something in Mariv.
Mariv, that's the introduction to Mariv, although we add Hashem Melech Yaneinu Karenu, right? Okay. First of all, let me just translate what it means.
Volazion and
sorry?
Hodu and a Volazion.
Hodu,
Hodu.
right? We say Hodu right after Baruch Shamar, we say Hodu. When else?
And right before Ashrei.
Right before Ashrei, very good. And Yehicha,
Volazion.
And a Volazion. Oh, I forgot about that one. Thank you. I have to check now. Right. So why do we say this so often? First of all, let's see what it means. V'hu rachum, it's very sort of like almost impersonal. V'hu, and he who is merciful, God, v'hu rachum, yichaper upon Yom Kippur. This week's parsha. What does kapara mean? What does their kapara mean? And we'll see. Tachanun is a very slichus feel to it. We'll get there. What does yichaper upon mean? He should forgive our sins. Yom Kippur. This is Yom Kippur. V'lo yashchit. And don't destroy us. And he should return his nose, his face, right? Up. Charon up is God's anger. That's the way the Torah says. He gets very angry. So he should lahashiv, he should hold back, return from hirba, a lot of that from his anger. V'lo ya'ir kol chamato. I'll look up, the Malbim has an explanation, I forget. I'll look hopefully between up and chama, 2 ways. Lahashiv apo, v'lo ya'ir, his anger should not be boiling, should not be burning over. So we have, by the way, 2 references in this verse to Parsha Noach. Everything ties into Parsha Shavua. What are the 2 references there to Parsha Noach? V'hu rachum yichaver avon v'lo yashchit. So the easy one is lahashchit. Lahashchit appears 4 times and for those who are Rabbi Hardbaiters, I found this year last night fascinating. His parsha share on the 2 stories of the Mabul, for those who were there. And it's lahashchit. God already in Parsha Bereshit said, I'm going to destroy Noach, but the people. And then Parsha Noach, ki shchit kol basar v'nei bart v'nei nishchata lahashchit. So that's right away destruction. What is the other comparison to Parsha Noach? Yechaper. Kaparta oto mibaitz kofer. What is bakar? That's what Yom Kippur is about. This I heard from Rabbi Leibtag also many years ago. The kaparta oto mibaitz kofer. What does it mean? Kapar? What does that mean? They covered the ark with pitch. I think that's how they translated. Kapara means a covering. Yom Kippur means we cover up the sin. We can't really undo the sin. It's part of who you are. You've done something wrong. It doesn't go away just because you repented and you're sorry and you're truly sorry. So we ask God to lichaper, to cover up the sin so it's hidden. that it's not exposed, and nobody can see it, that has no real impact. It's like behind the scenes. It should motivate you. And that's also true. We don't want to totally forget about the sin. We want to remember the sin to motivate us not to sin. So that's what Yom Kippur is about. It's such a beautiful way just to understand the words, because everybody knows, what a word means. The first time it appears in the Chumash is what the word means. So Kippur, kapara, means to cover, lechaper. So God should cover up. Not in modern English, cover up has a very negative connotation, right? We're hiding, we're covering up something. But we don't mean it in that negative, cover up like fraudulent way. We mean it in a way that God shouldn't punish us for the sin. And it should be, but it should be remain there. So that I just find it interesting that Parsha Noach, the first braching of Tachanun, begins, V'hu Rachum Yikav happens to tie in to Noach. Okay, it's always nice when that happens. Okay, why do we say this so often? Why do we say it at Mariv? Let's start there. We say it every day. Mariv begins, V'hu Rachum Yikav. Okay, we'll forget Hashem Moshe Malki Aleinu B'Yom Koreinu. Why do we say it at Mariv? We're not up to Mariv yet. Well, we're only in Shach. It's going to take us another 8 years, please God, to get to Mariv, right? Whatever. So probably because Mariv is the beginning of the day, right? We begin the day at night, right? We bring light to the world. We begin the day at night. So the first thing we want to do is, what do we do wrong? See, we live our day according to the day, like morning. We don't live our day that the day changes at night. And that I think is on purpose. Like the halacha knows that. Like nobody looks at their watch at 4, when Shkiyat, okay, except for Fridays, right? Except for Friday, nobody looks at their watch, oh, it's now a new day. Like we don't live that way. We live, and that's why I mentioned the first class I gave 184 classes ago. The first class on the Siddur, we discussed what David Silver noted. You open up any Siddur, it begins at Shachrit. No Siddur begins at Mariv. Unless you make a Shabbos Siddur, then they'll begin at Mincha. The Siddur begins at Shachrit, doesn't begin at Mariv. He had a whole other explanation because in the temple that they started in the morning, whatever, but we live our life from morning to evening. The halacha sort of imposed a strange idea that the day should start at night. It's really strange that the day starts at night, and we've explained because we're imitating God. By Omer Limihi Or, last week's parsha, God created light. This is a world of darkness, and boy, is it a world of darkness. And the mission of humanity, not just Jews, but especially Jews, but all of humanity, is Vayihi Or, to bring light to the world. So we begin the day at night. That's what it's like weird. So I think we begin Mariv, V'hu Rachum Yikav, right? That okay, what do we do today? Remember, people went to bed. They didn't stay up till mid. They didn't watch the Blue Jay game that started. The games have to start at night because the ratings are higher. Who can watch a game at night? I used to like when they played playoff games in the afternoon. There was an excitement. You'd be at work and everybody follows the game. There's something, I like that when the playoff game, they ruined that all. It's always at night. No good. And I don't go to a bar I let people go to a bar to watch a game. I'm sorry. I don't watch the game at all. But okay, I turned on the 7th game in the 6th inning in time to see George Springer's home run. Okay, Baruch Hashem. Okay, very nice. But anyway, so we don't live that life. But so we're going to go to bed. So the day before we start Mariv, last prayer we're going to say before, it's the first prayer of the day, but it's the last prayer of the day. It's the prayer we're going to say before we go to bed. So we ask God to forgive our sins, and we want to think about the next day and what to do. That's what I think. That's why we say it tomorrow. Now there's a debate. Why do we say it on Yom Kippur? Right? That's really a question. Why do you say it on Yom Kippur? That we just finished Ne'ilah. What's sin? But okay, but that's not for now. They're all. I guess not to make any changes. Really, it is. But doesn't really make sense on Yom Kippur. Yeah, all the jokes, the way they're going to do whatever. You didn't really do tshuva, but no, we accept that our tshuva is accepted. That's all Noshem Yom Kippur. But so we say every day B'hu Rachum. Okay, why do we say before Ashrei? So now remember, B'hu Rachum is, I believe, Tehillim Kaf 108. I think I have to double check now. I don't even remember the exact source in Tehillim. So it's not like we're saying this parak in Tehillim, so it happens to be there. Every time it's said, it's specifically brought there. It's not part of a text. The authors of our Siddur brought it into the text. Mar begins at Barchu. We don't say V'hu Rachum on Friday night. We don't say it on Friday night. It's an interesting question. Why? I actually haven't thought about that yet. Why don't we say V'hu Rachum on Friday night? We may have sinned on Friday, but I guess maybe we don't want to start Shabbat. You know why? Now, because we've already accepted Shabbat by Baruch Hu. We said Mizmor Shir. We don't talk about sin, and that's not a. I think look. That's not a concept on Shabbat. So right, we don't. So the question is like, why are the rabbis? They're bringing in the verse specifically and all the places. So it's not part of Mari. Mari begins Baruch Hashem Baruch, and at some point. I'm sure in the time of the Talmud this wasn't said. I don't know. I don't know the historical thing. I can see if I can find out, but my guess it wasn't originally part of Marv. But I don't know that. That's just is speculation on my part. And it was added in before we say Marv. It's the introduction to Marv. Now Marv, God forgive us. What did we do wrong today? Okay, good. So why did we throw it in Yehi Chavod, which also a compilation of verses? I don't know that I have a great answer, but I have a thought. I want to hear your thoughts. That's why when I don't know something, I just ask you, and then hopefully you can give me the answer, right? So nobody. Okay, so I thought perhaps mi imalel gvurat Hashem yashmiya kol tilato. Right, mi imalel gvurat Hashem. That's our next holiday. Who can say the praises of God? All right, yashmiya kol tilato. Right. What's the next? Now I forget how it goes. Only the righteous can say the praises of God. There is a notion. I forget what Hashem. I forget the second part, but I know the Talmud talks about the idea that Yashmiya kol tilato. Only the person who talks to praise God is somebody who fulfills all the mitzvot. So I thought Ashrei is the central praise we say. Ashrei is the key linchpin to Psukei Zimra in the morning. People know halachically if you come late to shul and you don't have time to say Psukei Zimra and you only have time to say like a tenth of Psukei Zimra, you just say Ashrei. Say Ashrei, and that's fine. So I thought maybe before we praise God, that we end, before we're going to praise God, we have to sort of cleanse ourselves of sin. I don't know, but before we pray at night, before we go to bed, and before we're about to praise God, we want to praise God with our full hands. Who wants that and that? Why do we say it in Hodu and Balazion? I didn't even remember, but which is really bad because I said it an hour ago and I missed it. Okay, and I don't remember. And we say it in Hodu. So you have to look in the context there, why it's in Hodu. But it's I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. I understand that it has meaning whenever you say it, but the question is, why did the rabbis put it in these specific things? So that's how Tachanun begins. But Tachanun begins, we ask God to please, to forgive us. That's why it's sort of it's like a Yom Kippur Slichas feel. Yeah, it is Yom Kippur, right? Ata Hashem lo tichla rachamecha mimenu. Okay, so we ask God to never hold back His mercy from us. He should never hold back His mercy. Right, your kindness and your truth, right, which is a little bit, contradictory. Chesed and emet. Why? In other words, why do we want God? Okay, so first of all, some commentaries, do you know what the mercy of God is? The mercy of God is chesed and emet. It's very interesting. They don't read it as God should be mercy and should have kindness and truth, but they read the mercy of God is that He has kindness and truth. It's sort of a different way to read it. That's the rachamim of God is that He is a combination of chesed and emet. Now, what's the difference between chesed and emet? Or why is emet? Why are we going to be saved by God for emet? I would think it's the opposite, right? If we look here, right? Man is, we always tell God, the midat ha'emet, the yud ke vav ke, the Elohim is the attribute of justice, truth. And the Yud Ke Vav Ke is the attribute of mercy. If God only has truth, we're finished. Human beings cannot exist. So we need mercy. So why do we throw in? We're asking God for mercy. Why do we throw in truth? You understand what I'm asking? Like we should just say, Your mercy should always strengthen us, should always guard us. Why do we say your mercy and your truth should guard us? Your truth is something that when I don't want to mention it. I don't want to give God any ideas. If he's going to be the God of truth, he knows on his own. I don't have to give him any ideas. I want to appeal to God's mercy, not his truth.
Maybe here it might mean loyalty, because sometimes like to be true to someone, sometimes it's interpreted that way. So we want God to be loyal.
Okay. So God, your truth that you made a covenant with the Jewish people. Could be. Okay, good. Yeah. What else? I actually have that. I wrote that in my notes. You made a covenant with us. We're appealing to God's truth. You made a covenant with us, and you have to keep your half of the bargain. So I think that is true. What else? I'd like to think that first of all, it is a reminder. We should. Now, we don't want our mercy to come. We don't want our credit to come only for mercy. We want to earn some of what we do. It shouldn't be total chesed, right? What's chesed? What's the highest form of chesed? We say is chesed shel emet, right? When you go to a funeral, the chesed shel emet, because you don't expect any repayment. There's chesed that one payment, but I think there's a notion of here it's not that type of emet, but we want God to judge us favorably because we deserve it, not just because we're merciful. Not he's merciful. If the truth isn't good enough, we should add mercy. And like I always like to say, I think the Jewish people have a claim, especially post-Holocaust, that God has to, any Jew who maintains his fidelity to God after 2,000 years of persecution, after October 7th, Holocaust, pogrom, Spanish expulsion, is amazing, right? And I say all the time, we proved Darwin, right? Everybody here, we proved Darwin, survival of the fittest. Most Jews over time assimilated. Not they were killed. There were Jews who were killed, of course, but Muslims and Christians were also killed. The reason Jewish people only are 14 million people is because most Jews in Spain didn't leave. They stayed behind in Spain. Some really converted. Many really did convert, mamash, including many rabbis. Many formerly great rabbis converted to Christianity over time. We can make a long list of rabbis, chief rabbis who converted. The pressure was too much. And some became Marranos, and it didn't really work. So most Jews, any Jew who had the strength to remain a Jew is a tzaddik. I think that's something we have to keep in mind. We look around the Jews who, quote unquote, aren't so religious, and there's not, wow, somebody identifies with Jewish people today in the world of anti-Semitism in the world. I mean, I don't live in New York, but it's big news here too. I mean, you're going to have a mayor, like the city with the most Jews in the world is going to have an anti-Semite as a mayor. Okay, I understand he's reaching out to Jews, whatever, they're going to have to work with him, but it is not good. It's really not good. And, so Jews who are proud to be Jews, I think that's why we can appeal to God's emet. Maybe that's a very modern interpretation. Maybe what Yocheved is saying is the actual interpretation, but it's also, I also like that there's also, I think, another idea that the Talmud says that Chotamo shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu emet. The signature of God is truth. God is emet. God is truth. He's also chesed, but the Talmud said the signature of God is truth, the signpost of God. Moshe emet, the Torato emet. Moshe is truth, Torah emet. So when we ask God for mercy, we can't ignore the attribute of truth. Anyways, that's, I think we'll pick up on this really, and we'll see that Tachanun is really just a compilation of verses from all over the place, and adding in things that aren't verses. So we'll go through it, and please you see there's really a lot of very beautiful ideas, but it does have a very slichot feel. Like you can see, just rambling off, because that's really what it is. It really is slichas. It really is slichas. We don't just say slichas before Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur motivates us for the year. We don't call it slichas because it's not special. It's part of our davening. We call it Tachanun. But what is Tachanun? Tachanun is slicha. Slichas is Tachanunim. Okay, let's just very quickly review what we learned. So we had a whole discussion about that Moshe Rabbeinu. Why don't we say Tachanun on holidays, on even quasi holidays? So the simple reason, because it's sad. It has a negative talk about it. Otherwise, it can be uplifting too, but it talks about that's a sort of negative, plain thing, beseeching God, just like on Shabbat, we don't beseech God. So we don't say it, even if it's not Shabbat, it's just a very minor. The Moel has a bris and shul, big deal. But even then, I thought perhaps we can add on the idea that what right do we have to come to God so much? So the same way we don't do it on Shabbat, only special occasion, anything that's a holiday, we don't have the right to beseech God. We have the privilege to say Tachanun, not the obligation, not the right. And while that's true, the Ramban says for all prayer is an act of kindness. It's especially true for Tachanun, which was meant to have no form, which is meant to have no words, nothing. But eventually, even that turned into that with words. Okay, but make up your own words. Say it in French if you want. Really, Tachanun is really an opportunity to really totally say your own, pour out your heart. That's what we're doing in Tachanun. Even more so than in the Amidah. That's why we fall on our face. It's much more beseeching God, much more personal than that you should take advantage of. Whatever. And I remember Rav Schachter telling us, most weeks he doesn't say, if the shul davens too fast, he would say, I think he divided Tachanun into three things. He would say just 1/3 of Tachanun. Much more important, you don't have to say the whole thing. Say part of it. The Monday you say this part, Thursday that part. If you don't have time, you say whatever. We get so caught up with words. Okay, then we very, very briefly discussed why Mondays and Thursdays. Moshe went up to Mount Sinai, and the Thursday that perhaps works. Shabbos came back on a Monday. We said it doesn't work, but we discussed numbers. Numbers are symbols. Numbers and names in Torah are always symbols. Lemach 777. Numbers are rounded off. Okay, Beseder, and it's the market day, so it's going to be the obvious date. People are going to say more. People have more time to daven. They came in for the market. We read the Megillah for them. They joined a community. They didn't have a minyan all week. Even on Shabbos, they didn't have a minyan, but they would come in on Mondays and Thursdays. Then we discussed V'hu Rachum. We just began the idea, the connection to Yom Kippur, Rachum, Lechaper, and the connection to Parsha Noach. Lashchit and kapara, and the teva was kofer to cover up. We don't erase our sins, we cover them up in a positive sense, that they don't have a negative impact, but they're there to remind us of what we do. And that's why we begin Mari at V'hu Rachum, because we want to begin our day, or we want to end our day thinking, okay, what did we do wrong? And God forgive us for the sins and motivate us for the next day. Okay, that's next week. By the way, we changed the clock in Israel. I know somebody wrote they had to leave because they're in Israel. It's already Shabbos, right? I know now we're going to start. Okay, so the classes will all be Eastern time. We're going to stay the same, like 11 a.m., 1 p.m., like Rabbi Grumman's fasting nights will be at 1 p.m. They'll just be at 7 in Israel as opposed to 8, except for Benny Gesundheit's class. That's going to be 2 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. in Israel. Okay, I got to run to go and teach. Let me just quickly, symbols, Torah uses name from Israel. Mandami hasn't won yet. Okay, fine. I'm not getting politics, but I'm just saying, whatever. Jews, we put up with a lot, and we deserve credit for that. We maintain our Judaism despite all our enemies. Okay. Anyways, okay, everybody. Share good news. Have a Shabbat Shalom, all things. And if I can say, go Jays, go. And if I'm allowed to say such a thing. But just
Shabbat Shalom and Chodesh Tov.
Chodesh Tov, yeah. Beit Cheshvan is Chodesh Tov also. And Yocheved is starting her class next week. Yocheved starting class on Rosh Salvation Evot Wednesday at 9:30. Right, 9:30, I think we said. Wednesday, I won't be able to be there, unfortunately. I didn't mention because I am teaching then, whatever in my schedule, but Vakasha, and we'll be in contact. Okay, Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Be well. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.